Hey, everybody. So welcome to House Calls, the podcast. I'm Ty House, and I'm here with my co-host, Matt Waldron. How you doing, Matt?
Your co-house, Matt Waldron, is doing A-OK. Happy to be here. Happy to be your co-host or
Good.
house, whatever you want me to be.
So we have been interviewing a lot of people with great careers, great hobbies, things they do that they're excited about and passionate about. And I feel like a lot of our listeners probably have a couple hobbies that they really like. And one thing that's super popular is sports and following sports and entertainment. And tonight's guest is Kyle Ritchie, who started off as an athlete and a huge sports fan and turned that into a career in sports and entertainment. So I think it's going to be an interesting story. That's his background. We've known Kyle for a long time. He worked for the Orioles for a time when he was young. He worked for the Carolina Panthers for many years, and I'm interested in hearing what he's doing now.
Yeah, I think a couple of things, though. I'm sure people are Googling who played for the Orioles and the Carolina Panthers, and it was not Kyle Ritchie. But I think Kyle's got a great story about you can still have a great career in sports and entertainment, but you don't need to be on the field or in front of the camera to still get a lot out of it. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say.
So it'd be a contrast because you and I are in front of the camera.
True.
And we are, I think, still the fastest growing podcast in America.
Yep.
And our research team, I think our demographic we're growing the fastest in is 18 to 28-year-olds.
Excellent.
That kind of area where they're kind of trying to figure out what they want to do in their life. And we're kind of presenting some careers that you and I don't know a ton about. You know more than I do, but I don't know a ton about them. And also some hobbies that are interesting. Our second most common demographic is empty nesters. So people who are within their first 6 months of being an empty nester, which I just think is fascinating.
Yeah. So you're talking about yourself.
I'm just amazed how inspiring we are to everybody around us.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think that's what people keep telling me is we've inspired all ages, all demographics. There's no boundaries for our influence.
And it's funny with the challenges, people are getting into them. I'm noticing not just how many people really have much stronger spines and cores. Have you noticed that? Everybody. I mean, it's like everybody's in great shape.
Everyone, the world is totally different from then when we started this 36 episodes ago.
And how many months ago was that?
I mean, it was like November. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Time flies.
Changed. The world's changed. The world
How about us?
How about us? All right.
Here's Kyle. Hey, everybody. So welcome to House Calls, the podcast. I am Ty House with my co-host, Matt Waldron. And tonight we are just having a conversation with Kyle Ritchie. So Kyle, what we are interested in is we think we have a lot of listeners, viewers, young people who might be thinking about what they want to do as a career. And as you know, that age is super into sports. They're super into entertainment. And you have made a career out of sports and entertainment. So we really want to hear about your story, starting off young as a fan, and then what career path you went down.
It's kind of like us, Ty. I mean, we're both into the entertainment industry now. So Kyle could probably help us as well.
Yes.
This is great. Been looking forward to chat with you all. And I actually do have this bit of this conversation here. I go to visit schools and colleges and talk to students and one-on-ones as well about that, since I have had kind of an interesting journey through my career. But Todd, to your point, it definitely started young, right? I know you've touched on this in other podcasts, but growing up in Maryland, you are totally inundated with sports and team and all those things. On top of being a lifelong huge Baltimore Oriole fan, going to all the games, going to Maryland football and Navy football and Maryland basketball. Like, I was lucky to have a family that was into all that. Definitely starting with my father, who's a massive sports fan, totally into all of that as a kid. So just surrounded by sports, both played them in school, played them youth leagues, watched them on TV, went to them all. So that's where the seeds were planted, obviously. Right. And I think a lot of people could say that. Then you get into school and didn't really decide to go to school to study that. Quite honestly, I went to James Madison University. I went in as a business major. I wasn't thinking sports because back then, because that was a while ago. We don't have to say how long ago it was, but that wasn't really a thing back then. Now sports management and sports and all that, those are majors now in colleges. But back then, I just went to do business. Well, long story short, I saw an ad, a poster on the wall at the beginning of my sophomore year saying, do you want to come work on the coach's football show, TV show? And I thought, sure. I wasn't really taking to the business thing as much as I'd hoped. And so I said, let me go see what this is about. And there was that was the beginning of it. So I got to do football and basketball, shoot games, interview players, put together highlight videos, work on the coaches' TV shows. Like I did all of that at JMU, travel with the teams. So that became the path. Like, okay, this is fun, interesting. I'm pretty good at it, et cetera, et cetera. So had a great mentor there, Dave Gallatin. Shout out to Dave. And so then you come to, well, what are you going to do when you get out of here? While I was there, my last 2 years at JMU, I again mentioned I was an Oriole fan. And so I decided to cold call, because back then there was no internet, cell phones, none of that. I just cold called the Baltimore Orioles and I said, they were one of only 2 teams, by the way, back then, that had video screens in their stadium.
So when you cold call, who are you calling?
Back then it was a switchboard, and everything went through there, right? Players, coaches. No, I called and I swear.
Hi, this is Kyle calling for Earl Weaver.
I went to the bullpen, but I said, who's responsible for putting the content on the video screen out in left center field? And they said, hold please for Charles Steinberg. So I found the right person. And so anyway, I interviewed with him and he said, how about an internship? That's how I got into the professional.
So Kyle, you happen to say at that time there were only 2 teams, and then Ty probably cut you off. At that time, there were only 2 teams that had video scoreboards or had scoreboards, had electricity. I don't know what was going on at that time.
So only the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Baltimore Orioles had video screens back then, back in the mid 80s. They were the first 2. Yeah.
So they're at Memorial Stadium.
Yep.
Got
Memorial Stadium up on 33rd Street in Baltimore. And, where I'd grown up watching the team. So I interned with them. I went up, convinced him I was his guy, and got an internship with Orioles Productions, is what it was called. And we covered the game in the stadium on game days. We also did highlight videos. We did a lot of programming in the stadium, but we also went out in the community and did footage there and interviews and things like that. So it was a lot of all that. And I just interned with them. So I traveled while I was in college, I traveled home on the weekends and I worked, and I traveled down. My spring break was spring training with the Orioles and things like that. So I just this is my first stop on the telling kids what to do thing. I made it so they couldn't get rid of me. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing,
right.
Make it so they can't get rid of you. And that's what I did. So when I graduated, they offered me a full-time position, and they increased the department from 4 to 5 people. So that's how I got my start in the business professionally and with the Orioles.
So you grow up in Annapolis, huge sports family. I don't know if Matt knows this, but you are a Cowboy fan, right? And how did that happen? How did you become a Cowboy fan?
I'm not now. I grew up a Cowboy fan because back then, again, a lot of this dates me, by the way, so thanks for throwing me under the bus. But back then you had 3 teams put in your face every Sunday. You had the Washington Deadskins, and they will forever be known as that to me. You had the Baltimore Colts, which my parents were fans of, and you had the Cowboys, Dallas Cowboys. Those are the 3 teams that network television pushed into your family's living room every Sunday back then. You didn't have a choice. So I very quickly attached myself to Roger Staubach. I guess part of it was being kind of a contrarian to the folks around me and the fans that they were. And of course, they were America's team at the time. They had the cheerleaders. They had Captain America with Roger. Roger went to the Naval Academy. I felt a draw to him for that. And so I became a huge Roger Staubach fan, and to this day still am. And that brought me to the Cowboys. And so I was a fan of theirs forever. Didn't like the transition when it happened, when Tom Landry was dismissed. Hung in there with them anyway. It was still my team. But in 1996, when I moved to Charlotte and started working for the Carolina Panthers, I went all in with the Panthers. And ironically, that was the year we dethroned the Cowboys as the winning franchise that they were, and they've never recovered, quite frankly.
So what I'm hearing there is that you're a bandwagon. You're
No,
a bandwagon fan.
a bandwagon.
Got it.
I'm
That's all I need to know. All right, hard cut. Hard cut.
I'm a Carolina Panther fan. The last thing anyone's going to accuse me of is being a bandwagon fan.
All right, Ty, you good?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm going to let Matt talk a little bit. I'm going to let Kyle talk a little bit. I'm going to sit back for about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. All right. So you got your questions of early 80s of Kyle out of the way.
Yeah.
Great. So Kyle, so now you're with the Orioles, and when you were growing up, you said you went into business. Did you have any idea, like, hey, this is what I want to do? Like, hey, I want to, be a banker. I want to be a baker. I want to be a orthopedic surgeon. Did you have any ideas about what you wanted to do? And you somehow stumbled into, sports and entertainment?
Funny enough, I really didn't when I went to college. In retrospect, it's shocking that I didn't think sports all along for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. But no, I really didn't. And so when that spark hit in that football, situation I had there in at JMU, it really, everything started to kind of fall into place. I wasn't sure where it was headed. And to this day, I'm still morphing each day with my current job. But,
right.
But yeah, it definitely, I was like, okay, I didn't know as a kid, but I knew in college what industry I wanted to be in, just not sure what form it would take.
And so during those glory years of the Orioles, when you were there, were you getting to know Eddie Murray? Did you get to meet a lot of the guys on the field, or were you just some little intern? The guys were just like, get out of my way.
One of the coolest things about the Orioles was that family feel. You spend a lot of time with the team because of the length of the season and the location and proximity of the locker room and the dugout to our offices. And we had to be hands-on with them to do stuff for the video. So I got very lucky to meet and become friends with quite a few of the players at that time. And I would count Cal Ripken and Eddie Murray among them. Some lesser known ones, the Pete Harnishers of the world and Tony Arnold's and those kind of guys. Ken Gerhardt, and I mean, just up and down. I babysat for Ray Knight's kids once. Phil Bradley and I, he'd provide batting practice music to me. So I got to know Phil. Mike Devereaux was an amazing guy. Like, there were so many cool guys, and I was young back then. We'd go out with some of them at night and hang out in bars and stuff with them. And so it was a fun time. And
how much of a role does music have to play in when you're doing some of these video things?
So back then I was in charge of, for 2 years, I was in charge of playing before I moved up to directing and that kind of thing. I was in charge of the music at the Oriole games. And so under the supervision of Charles Steinberg, I would play back all the music that, the walk-up music, which wasn't as big a deal back then, quite frankly, as it is now. But all of the pitching change music and the in-between innings when we didn't have video content, right? Charles is an incredibly music knowledge person. And we played a vast array of different music at the Orioles, although we played more Beatles than any other team because Charles is a Beatles fanatic. But I got to know even more. And I was DJing, I didn't mention that, at the end of high school and beginning of college, I was DJing as well. And I know you guys were attendees at a couple of dances I may have DJ'd. And so I did a little bit of DJing at different events. And so I was very music oriented. So I was able to combine music and sports pretty secondhand to me. So I would cut most of the Orioles highlights on the board for those couple of years was me because I just had a knack for music. I got along with Charles and his musical acumen very well. And so we put together these highlight videos of players, bashing balls and stealing bases. And it was a lot of fun.
So are you responsible for using Thank God I'm a Country Boy?
I'm responsible for keeping it there forever and ever as a fan. Never lose that. That and Oriole Project. You can't get rid of those. I was a huge supporter of both of those songs.
All right.
Did they limit the number of Buffett songs you could play?
Interesting sidelight since you brought it up. We had a musical all-stars video vignettes that we would do at the Orioles. When I got there, the Bangles had just been done. The crew had flown out to LA. recorded the Bengals. I got to put together a music video of the Bengals Walk Like an Egyptian, and the fans were doing it in the stands, and we were promoting their concert at Merriweather Post Pavilion. Fast forward, I think it was my second month there, or maybe a month and a half in, I get an invitation to drive to Richmond, Virginia, meet Jimmy Buffett. I'm a huge fan, in a hotel like lobby side room, and shoot a video of him doing some of his songs. And so I went down, we shot it.
No
I got
way.
to edit. Yeah, I got to edit the whole thing, and we played it on the board, and it was amazing. So I got to combine Oriole highlights with Jimmy Buffett concert footage that I knew how to get with his footage in that room that day, and put it all together into some music videos for the board.
There you go.
And then how did your transition through the Orioles to ultimately moving on from the Orioles? How did that work?
So long story short, Camden Yards was being built. One of my last assignments was to go down and record the demolition of the site. So I remember being there when they knocked down the main building where Camden Yards is going to go, and I recorded all that. And then for a number of reasons, both personal and professional, it was time for something else. And so I decided to leave, and there was an opening over at the National Aquarium in Baltimore. It was opening their Marine Mammal Pavilion. And so this is when I thought, okay, I've been doing sports now for going on 7 years. Maybe do I want to do something in video, but outside of sports? This is a good way to try. So I did that. I went over to the aquarium. They were opening that pavilion, and they needed somebody to come in and help them put together and run their video show and run their show for the dolphin presentation and the beluga whale presentation. So I did that. I was living in Baltimore already. And so it was a very cool, fun experience. Met a lot of really good friends to this day through that. But I was only there for a year because, and this is the part of the student talk when I tell kids, don't burn bridges. You never know. I left on very good terms with the Orioles. And next thing I know, Camden Yards is about to open. I live literally a block and a half away. And I found myself in Charles's office a few days before opening day. And I said, we're just talking about life in general and opening day coming up, how exciting it was. He asked me what I was doing opening day. And I said, well, I hope I'm here. I didn't have a ticket and I wasn't working. I said, I hope I'm here. And he asked me at that point, he said, well, I need you to shoot the president. I said, okay, that's funny. What are you talking about? President Bush, George Bush, his father, he was coming to spend the day with our owner, Eli Jacobs, and Mr. Jacobs wanted a video of him hanging around with the president all day. So next thing I know, Charles brings me in. I'm dressed up in a suit, shooting camera, and I hung out with Secret Service and the president and the owner on the opening day of Camden Yards. So that was my only day I've ever worked in Camden Yards, was that day. So that was the Don't Burn Bridges, because he helped me out. But here's the reason I tell you that story. I go back 2 to 3 days later, to talk to Charles about putting together the project of all the tapes that I shot that day. Before we even get to that, he says, hey, I heard about a job down in Miami, Florida. I thought you might be interested in. I said, okay. And I went down and I interviewed and I got the job and I moved and I never did the video. That's the short story there. I don't know who got stuck doing the video. I never had to do the video with all those tapes. The job he told me about was the Miami Dolphins and the Florida Marlins. And they played in the same stadium on the same field, which was awful. But the Dolphins wanted their video show kind of punched up, and the Marlins were coming into being. They were an expansion team. And so with my background in both sports, they thought I was a good fit. So I moved down there, quite frankly, for 4 years, and I did both teams, which, football and baseball schedules, that was a bear. Not a lot of free time.
Year-rounder.
Year-round, and you got Dan Marino out there playing on dirt because we had one field. It was nuts.
And you met your wife in Miami, right?
I did. I went down there, lived there 4 years, did that, met her, and we got out and moved to Charlotte. But yes, met my wife. We got married. She was pregnant with our first child. And then we heard about another job through connections in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that would get rid of baseball and I'd go back to just football. And so I thought, that'd be interesting. I did baseball. I've done both, but boy, football schedule sounds really good. So that's when we moved to Charlotte in March of '96. Team hit the field in August of that year. Well, our first child was born in June of that year, and then the team hit the field in August of that year. So very short turnaround to get a lot of things done. And we've been in the same house. Yeah, we've been in the same house ever since. We've been here 29 years. And the Panthers went undefeated at home, and we went to the NFC Championship game in Green Bay in only our second year of existence. That didn't go so well up there.
Yeah.
And it took a while to get back, but yeah. So.
And then what are you doing for the Panthers at this point? Was it the same kind of stuff you were doing with the Orioles and the Dolphins and the Marlins, or did the job description change?
Yeah, it really was very much the same as the Dolphins and the Marlins. I kind of learned the biz with the Orioles, but now things in technology is changing as we're going. Matter of fact, I remember the day at the Dolphins and Marlins, I was working for the stadium, the two teams and the stadium. So there's a lot going on. Email became a thing. My wife sent me what was known as electronic mail. And so things started changing rapidly in the technology while I was down there. So I did that down there for 4 years and ran the show, right? Ran for both teams, video board, music, PA, game day entertainment, like all of those things fell under me. And so again, things are a lot different now. Some places have multiple people doing that, but that's the way it was back then. And then when you got here, same thing, except I had to put a room together. We had an empty shell of a stadium, and we had to spec out and buy all the equipment and outfit the entire operation and hire the entire crew. So my game day crew at the Panthers was about 40, 45 people on game day. I didn't know anyone when I moved here. I moved in March, team hit the field in August. So I had to put together a show and hire all these people and make it all work very quickly.
And have a baby and still have a life.
Have a baby and
easy.
Move.
How do you find a team? Like, how do you even do that? Like, how do you start? Do you advertise and say we're interviewing, and then you just sit down across from them?
To date me, a fax machine played into that. We sent faxes all over town to all the production houses, and I mean, really, there was no internet. So we just got the word out as fast as we could, and I interviewed. In 12 days, I conducted 120 to 140 interviews in 12 days. It was brutal, but picked the best people, and it was an amazing group of people. Most of them stayed with me the entire 23-year run. A few of them are still there. So we put together just a great team, and so yeah, it all worked out. Just go.
So you were there for 23 years. Wow.
I was with the Panthers for 23 years.
What a run.
Then 22 years into the 23 years, we were under an ownership, a family ownership, the Richardson family. And I was very comfortable there. That's what I'd known. I grew, my kids all grew up with this organization. I have 3 boys, huge fans, went to every game, blah, blah, blah. But that final year, new ownership came in, not to begrudge new ownership to do what they want to do, but it was a different feel.
Sure.
Different vibe, different culture, right? Again, not begrudging anyone who's there now or came in after me, but it was just, again, 23 years, a long time. It was time for a change. And so, God works in mysterious ways, but he put that change in my path to let me decide that I want to leave. So I actually decided to leave without a job in July of 2019. Super hard decision, but at the same time, it wasn't. Full support from my family.
Sure.
And so we never look back, and it's been great. It's afforded me a lot of time and opportunities that I wouldn't have had both professionally and personally as a result. So it's all worked out. Everyone lands on their feet. And I did a couple of things for 2 years before I went on my own. It was time for something else. And I just started freelancing. I'd been freelancing all over the place. And I just decided, finally, let's go try this on your own. So 2 years ago in June, I started my own LLC, Ritchie Ventures, and been freelance, doing all kinds of stuff in this market, mostly sports, some music, some events, but mostly sports, all over since then.
When you were working for the big organizations, did you ever freelance like on the side, or people asked you to do a favor so you had already built up maybe some of your techniques, or no?
Yes. Yeah,
Not
in
enough
the
time for
last
that.
2 years, yeah, not with the Panthers, very, very little of that. There's just no time, and what little time you get,
Uh-huh.
you value and you spend with family, and the kids were still home. But no, as things progressed towards the end, the last year, and then definitely in the last 2 years prior to starting my own, yeah, I was able to do some freelance things, and I thought, okay, if I can put enough of these together, we can make this work. And that's, then I went all in. But once you go all in, you can schedule yourself out farther, because I wasn't doing that. I was going, I can only schedule out 2 or 3 months. People want to know that, like, we want you for basketball season. That means you need to schedule out through March. You can't just do it one. So I just went all in, and now I've got repeat clients. It's just kind of starts feeding on itself.
So what kind of events are you doing?
You name it. It's been all over the place, and I play a different role at a lot of different things. I literally name it, right. In the last 6 months, year, you can count F1, the F1 race in Vegas, rodeo, soccer, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, men's and women's, rugby, soccer, professional and college. I went down and did the Parapan games in Santiago, Chile for 2 weeks. I mean, it literally, when I say all over the place, it's all over the place. So, it's been, and then on top of that, music festivals. There's some, especially bluegrass. I've gotten into the bluegrass, not as a listening, although I like it, but I'm in with the group that does them, and we do a number of events around the Southeast, and so got a couple of those coming up, and so yeah, and again, some places I might be directing. I also do high school football. Some place I might be directing, I might be producing, I might be camera guy. All of them you're helping to set up, tear down to a point. So it just depends. I'd say producing is the thing I do the most of. I do a lot at High Point University, which is an hour and a half from here, but regional. Do a lot of sports there. Yeah, it's been fun. Oh,
My question is, when you worked for the Panthers, and I did a tour of the Ravens, and like when you're looking at the entertainment area, it's this huge like room with tons of staff and tons of computers. And I imagine you had something like that at Carolina, where you had this like home base. It seems like going off to these different events must be like an away game every week. I mean, that must present huge challenges compared to like before, where you were going to the same place every day.
Oh, hey, Kyle, let me just stop you right there. Kyle, just hold on one second. I know we both want to smack him because he is on dial-up. Okay, I'm pretty sure he put an AOL disk into a computer to get this connection. So just be nice to him, but let him know about technology and how things are a little bit different now, please. And speak slowly; he won't follow it.
No, he makes a good point. You get very comfortable. You know where everything is, and you can put together whatever you need to with your people and your equipment, for sure. When you go on the road, sometimes you're in a very tiny TV truck with limited resources, or you're in a beautiful. I mean, the control rooms in High Point and Wake Forest are fantastic, right? They're different than you're used to, but you very quickly assimilate and you make it work. It's just some places have more resources than others. You just have to make it work each place you go. Internationally, when I did that was interesting. And, there was a bit of a language barrier there, but we made it work. But yeah, it's fun and different. That's kind of why I enjoy doing what I do now. Part of it also is I was very adverse to traveling when I had young kids. I did not want to travel. I wanted to be here. I did not want to miss a single thing. And I'm glad I did that. But once they were out in college and out of the house, then my guardrails for not wanting to not travel kind of started going away, allowing me to go out and do, even if it's regional, but just getting away and being out of town for 3-4 days at a time or longer doesn't bother me anymore.
So when you discuss this with college students and you're like, these are the positives, these are the negatives, what's your go-to speech?
Well, it starts with, you will get paid nothing for a while and maybe for a long time, because the money in sports is on the field and it's and it's in the advertising. It's not with the staffs. So the people that a lot of kids, they just I want to get into sports. And I've had those conversations with some kids. I want to get into sports, and I try to narrow it down. What avenues, you got to start getting a little more specific than I want to work in sports, and dial it into the business analytics side, the performance side, the video productions. I mean, there's so many avenues to it. The legal side, like what do you want to do, and try to get them to get down an avenue, because again, the folks that work for the teams for the most part, except your high up management, folks that work for the venues, they're not making, they're making okay money, not great, but the money that's being thrown at these sports, it's all going, like I said, it's all in the athletes and the coaches and the advertising. So you have to be willing to put in a lot of long hours, especially based on your sport, like when I was baseball and football, or if you're college campus, holy smokes, those people are worked like dogs. There's so many events on a major college campus, that they just have to work tons and tons of hours and not make great money, especially to start. So you have to be comfortable with that. That's kind of my number one. And if I haven't lost them, then we start getting into some of the nuances, but just to kind of manage that expectation.
I think you have such great experience, and you communicate so well that I'm sure these kids get a lot out of it. So what a great resource for people that you get to talk to. It's been really interesting.
Well, I appreciate it. And I think a lot of it goes, the first thing I tell them is my backstory, a very quick version, quicker than I did with you guys. But just to give it some credence that who they're listening to. I may not know everything, but I've seen a lot. And what I like to do, I've done this with a couple people.
Absolutely.
I like to have that conversation in person if I can, when I'm in Annapolis, at my parents' house, in my dad's sports bar, my parents' sports bar, because you're surrounded by sports, much like I am in my room here in my house, but you're surrounded with sports history, and both personal and national and international kind of thing. But it kind of gives you a sense of how immense and long history, sports are, when these kids want to talk about sports. So, and again, that goes back to the beginning of the conversation about my attachment to sports. Definitely started in the home. My parents and I still will call each other about the Oriole games and lament, my AFC team's the Ravens. So we'll lament the Ravens games, and we'll talk Orioles, and we'll talk Navy athletics and all that. And, they're about to turn 90, and they're still very active in participating in those, as spectators in those sports. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a great bond for you and for your family and for your kids, and their, your parents, grandkids, and great grandkids. It's just fun to watch.
For sure.
What, as a fan, but also working, I'd like to know, what is your all-time favorite sporting event you've ever been to as a fan? And then on the other hand, what's the one you worked at that was the best?
Well, I would say, oh boy. So I think I worked a Super Bowl, and I went to 2 Super Bowls, right? The one I worked was fun, but the 2 I went to, because my family was with me, that had to be the highest point, right? Just to be we lost both of them. It was the Panthers in Houston, Panthers in Super Bowl 50. But just that whole experience of having my family with me at those events, and they still remember it to this day. Those would have to be the highlights. But again, because I was able to share them, and I didn't have to work them. They were away games. I just didn't have to work. So thank God for that. And then as far as working the events, it's hard to look past the SEC basketball tournaments. The last 2 years, I've worked the men's and the women's, and I sit courtside. And I've got 2 of my 3 kids go to SEC schools, or one graduated from Auburn, and one is currently at Tennessee. And so Auburn won the tournament year before last, and I was able to go on the court and celebrate with the players and coach and mascot, and it was surreal, and it was just a blast. So as far as working the event, that one's pretty high up there. I mean, the international Parapan games was really cool, because I was in another country and doing blind soccer. That was my venue. I was the producer or the video guy for blind soccer, which that's a whole nother podcast. Fascinating. So yeah, I'd say those are two of the highlights. but I've worked so many. It's so hard. It's like having kids and go, which one's your favorite?
How about each stage of your career? Do you have a favorite athlete? Like
Oh,
not like that you were a fan of, but like was the most fun to work with. So you're like, oh my God, today's gonna be a great day because I'm shooting a video with Pete Harnish.
Right. No. Yeah. No, that's a great question. In fast order, I would probably say my favorite. Well, again, it's like having kids and say which one's your favorite. But I had some pretty cool memories
hey,
with
Kev.
Eddie, with Eddie Murray. Eddie and I actually went on a double date once, which was again that was surreal. So it's
Whoa,
probably
whoa,
Eddie.
whoa! That's another
Yeah.
timeout. You don't gloss over that.
True. It happened. But and he was good friends with my boss, Charles. So we saw him around the offices a lot. But dealing with any of them, I mean, I went on shoots with Cal, and he was great. Okay, Orioles cruises. I got to go on 2 Oriole cruises, and you really get to know the players there. So I got to hang out with Book Powell, Billy Ripken, Jim Traber, Rick Shue, Joe Angel. I mean, that's when you see the real people, and they were awesome and fun as hell to hang out with. So that would probably be a big highlight as the Oriole cruises.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, and it was working too.
This one better be an easy question for you.
Yeah.
What is your walk-up song?
Yeah, you guys had mentioned that might be a thing, and I had to give that some thought, and I think I came up with a pretty good answer. I'm looking back at my notes on this one. No, I would think for those that know me, it would have to be one of 2 things. It would have to be one of the most recognizable songs from that's tied to a movie, which happens to be my all-time favorite movie that I've seen a million times. So it would sound weird, but Eastbound and Down by Jerry Reed would instantly identify me to any of my friends because I'm a massive Smokey and the Bandit fan. So probably
that might be the greatest call we've ever had.
Yeah, might be going with that. But if not, then the mainstay, of course, would be Jimmy Buffett with Fins or Love and Luck, just 2 of my favorite upbeat Jimmy songs. But huge fan. But anything Jimmy Buffett, Kenny Chesney, George Strait, those are my guys. Garth Brooks. But yeah, I say Eastbound and Down probably. That way, I don't have to pick again. I don't have to pick one of my favorite kids. I can go with the Jerry Reed song.
Yeah, no. I think that's fantastic. I love that. The movie doesn't get enough love and respect.
Hostile.
Okay, that's a good one. Your golf foursome. Who are you choosing to go with?
So my golf foursome, and I'm staying in the sports world because for the most part, it's going to be
you got
Roger Stahl. Well, I mean, for the purposes, I'm in the sports mind with you guys. Roger Staubach, again to this day. By the way, most successful business ex NFL player, businessman in history financially, with far and away.
Dwarf. Yeah. Yes.
And
dwarfs.
Amazing
dwarfs
guy.
Anybody else?
I got to meet him. I got to throw football with him. Roger's my guy. So Roger for sure. Steph Curry, number 2. Going to go down as one of the greatest basketball players in history, the best shooter ever. And he's from here in Davidson and from Charlotte. So my son, he was actually my son's summer coach one year. So a lot of love in this family for Steph Curry. We're huge Curry fans. I'm a big Warrior fan because of Steph. So you can go back in your bandwagon thing, but it's directly attributed to Steph. Wherever he went, I was going to be a fan of. So it just worked out. And then my dad would be in the foursome. He is a huge golf aficionado. He's been to, he went to 37 straight Masters and only missed 3 competitive days in 37 years. He loves the game. He knows the game. There's no way I'd be in a foursome of that magnitude without my dad being one of the 4. And then I mentioned them earlier. You can do a coin flip of these 3 people who are alive, because I do want a little bit of entertainment in here. And you can pick Garth Brooks, Kenny Chesney, or George Strait of my my 4 guys that are still alive that I take any one of them.
Cover it. That would be a great group.
That'd be a good crew. Kyle, I'll tell you, and I've told this to your dad, for me, the Masters is my event, right? And there's nothing else. I mean, just don't talk to me from Thursday to Sunday, everything. And I will watch highlights, and every time there's a first tee highlight, I spend half the time looking for your dad for 37 years in a row. It's the best. And every time I see him, I'm like, oh, Delmar, there he is. Yeah. Kyle, this has been great. Really appreciate your time. I'm sure, Ty and I were talking earlier, we've got a lot of parents, and a lot of our demographic is 18 to 28. And so I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this. And, knowing that there's a couple different ways, as you said, there's a lot of different avenues to explore in the world of sports and entertainment.
What
you don't have to be just on the field.
Right, absolutely. But you're also telling me that they're going to think, wow, when this dude started, there was no internet, no email, no cell phones. How did he function?
Well, exactly.
That's
why you're a hero. You're a real hero. That's why
he was playing tunes. He was playing Purple Rain at the dances, ending the dance with Freebird, and then before you know it, he's at big events like the Super Bowl.
That's it, and that's where we cut the movie.